And he left it because he was poor, but years later life would teach him a lesson that he would never forget. Before you start, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. This is the story of Jonathan, a 19-year-old young man who left his hometown, San Pablo, to fulfill his dream of studying a university degree at one of the best universities in Bucaramanga. Therefore, he had to move completely to said city, leaving his family in the town, but always with the hope of being able to become someone in life and give the best to them. The university where he was going to study was public, but the best in the region. Only the best students entered there, since they first had to pass tests that would qualify their entry. Jonathan, being humble and coming from a town with few possibilities, was very intelligent, so he was finally given the place by meeting the expectations of the university management. He arrived in the city of Bucaramanga with his few belongings and so many dreams. The young man quickly began looking for a job and luckily he found it in a cafeteria as a waiter. At the beginning of the semester, he was well presented and did not seem to come from limited resources, since his boss in the cafeteria had given him an advance to buy new clothes. From the first day, he began to meet those who would be his future colleagues, the next business administrators. While he was greeting, a young woman named Laura entered, very pretty by the way. Jonathan looked at her immediately and thought, what a pretty woman. She's going to be my girlfriend. Laura, seeing Jonathan so well dressed, wondered what prestigious family he was the son of. Laura was capricious and she liked to be treated. She dreamed of a life full of luxury, with a husband who would please all her desires. Jonathan and Laura started dating. They saw each other almost every day at university, they went to the movies, went out to eat and visited shopping malls. Everything was going very well until Jonathan found himself at the crossroads of how to reveal to Laura that he was a waiter. He thought she would leave him, but Laura was already very much in love with her. When he finally told her the truth, she was surprised and asked him how she managed to dress well and pay for her stay and food. He replied, Laura, I don't sleep well enough to give you your pleasure, I also work overtime at night until the wee hours of the morning. Laura thought, does she really love me? Over time, Laura's demands on Jonathan increased, but he could not meet them. Every day he became more exhausted by the heavy routine he carried out. One day, Laura demanded that Jonathan buy her a cell phone, the latest model from one of the best brands. Jonathan explained that he only had enough for his own needs, but Laura, very angry, reproached him that that was the problem with hanging out with a poor person, that they never have anything and always complain. The days passed and the relationship faded. She treated him badly and humiliated him, even in front of his friends. After an embarrassing episode, Jonathan went home feeling sad and disappointed about the situation with his girlfriend. Laura was always a capricious woman, who only cared about dressing well, having the latest cell phone and having money to show off and buy expensive things. Unfortunately, when Jonathan noticed her, he didn't know it. Her life was becoming more and more complicated. He was no longer performing at university, his grades were low, and at work he was no longer the same. He kept thinking about how to recover his relationship with Laura. So time passed, but the relationship had deteriorated. A year before finishing university, Laura cheated on Jonathan with another young man named Elias, who was the type of man she was looking for. The aura came from a family with a lot of money. His parents were the owners of one of the largest hotel chains in the city. Jonathan, sad and disappointed, continued going to the university, watching as Laura walked past him with her new boyfriend. Although he did not study at the same university as them, he always went to look for her. She no longer cared if he suffered, for her, Jonathan no longer existed. The moment Jonathan was waiting for arrived, he graduated from college. Although his last year was hard, between the subjects and seeing his ex-girlfriend with another man walking around the university, this young man achieved his goal of becoming a business administrator. Thanks to his kindness and friendliness, he quickly got a job in his field of study. How it happened? Well, in the same cafeteria where he worked, a man who, although he seemed humble, turned out to be the owner of another hotel chain in the city, not as big as that of Laura's boyfriend's family, but equally successful. This man offered Jonathan to be the manager of his hotel, and he couldn't believe it, but he accepted immediately. Jonathan met the eldest daughter of Carlos, the owner of the hotels, who a few months ago had begun to take charge of the hotel chain. She was going to be Jonathan's boss. The woman's name was Valeria, and she was 3 years older than him. She was a mature woman who was looking for stability and to share her life with someone who really loved her for herself, not for her money. Over time, Jonathan and Valeria became friends and grew closer every day, until one day they realized that they were in love. A few months later, she asked her to be his girlfriend, and she accepted. Her family was very happy because they knew the young man and knew that he was a very valuable person. At that time, Jonathan's ex-girlfriend married Elias, the boy she had cheated on him with in college. The news reached Jonathan, but he no longer cared, because he had really fallen in love with Valeria. 2 years passed and Jonathan asked Valeria to marry him. The happy couple had 3 children, and with each passing day, Jonathan fell more in love with her. He knew that life was giving him what he deserved, a wonderful wife and 3 children who loved him. Jonathan and Valeria made a great team as partners. Her family gave him the power to take charge of the hotels and, together, they managed to position the hotel chain as the largest in the city. Jonathan's family already lived in Bucaramanga. He bought them what he had promised them so much, a big house and a good life. For him, the most important thing was to have his parents close and for them to share with his grandchildren. 10 years later, his wife's family business began to position itself as the largest in that city. Each time, the numbers grew and the stock values increased, until something happened that you will never believe. The family of Elias, Laura's husband, was losing everything. They began to sell the hotel chain. Jonathan was already a millionaire man, so he began to buy all the shares of that family. Elias went from being the owner to being just another employee of one of the hotels. She never heard from Jonathan again. She thought that he had returned to his town and that he had not progressed in his life. One day, like any other, Jonathan arrived at the largest hotel in that chain. He summoned all the employees, introduced himself as the sole owner, and Elias saw it. He couldn't believe that the person who had bought the hotel chain was that humble young man. Laura arrived because she was curious to know who the person was who had bought the hotel, and when she saw him, she was very surprised. She waited for everyone to leave so she could talk to Jonathan. When she did, he greeted her normally, but he didn't think much of it. However, somehow, she got his cell phone number and called him to meet him at a restaurant. Jonathan agreed to go and they met. She asked him how he had achieved everything he had now, to which he replied that he had found a woman who really valued him and helped him get ahead, someone who didn't care who he was. She simply dedicated herself to loving him and push you to be a better person. He helped me and supported me in all my dreams. Now I am married to the woman of my life, Jonathan told him. Laura left the table sad, thinking that if she had stayed with Jonathan, she would have a happy family right now. Because, even though he had nothing, she did have many values and dreams to get ahead. This story teaches us that the most important thing in life is to grow and fight for your dreams with the person you love. Money is something that comes and goes, but your partner's love is unconditional when you decide to stay together for the rest of your lives. What do you think of the story you just heard? Remember that if you want to continue hearing stories like this,